Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, helping you prepare for Thanksgiving with fresh produce, quality meats, and all the ingredients for your favorite holiday dishes. Learn more at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
You can get tickets for the first time today to the very first home match of Colorado's newest pro sports team, the home opener for Denver Summit FC, the women's soccer team. It'll be played in March at Mile High, the Broncos Stadium. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, a setback for a Colorado law meant to protect kids from the harms of social media.
The federal judge said Colorado's intent was laudable and legitimate, but said it likely went too far by compelling this private speech.
Then, it's a city versus a church in a long battle over helping people who are unhoused in their community.
Unfortunately, we're having to take a hard stance on the Methodist Church right now.
Plus, what's for lunch? Is it good for your gut? Hear about a new study on veterans linking our microbiomes with mental health. It's Wednesday, November 12th. Here's the news in Colorado today. When kids in Colorado spend a lot of time on social media, they're supposed to get warnings that could be harmful to them. That was a requirement in a new state law. But it may not happen. A federal judge has decided to hit pause on that requirement while a legal challenge to the law plays out. CPR's Benta Birkeland has been following this. Benta, can you tell us more about this new law? How is it supposed to work?
So it would have required social media companies to show pop-up warnings to kids under 18 if they're on a platform for more than an hour in a day or if they're online late at night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So these warnings would basically say prolonged use can affect mental health, especially for young people. They'd pop up every 30 minutes. Colorado lawmakers passed this law last year.
And I assume the law is a reaction to research about the risks of social media use.
That's absolutely right. Research shows that increased smartphone and social media use among teens and those even younger is linked to higher rates of mental distress, self-harm, and even suicidal thoughts. A Wall Street Journal investigation revealed Meta's own research that showed Instagram could be harmful to teenage girls, especially around body image and self-esteem.
If there's evidence that social media use can harm young people, why did a judge stop the law from taking effect?
This case was about the First Amendment. The tech industry said forcing the industry to adopt the state's view on social media use was blatantly unconstitutional. A coalition called NetChoice filed the lawsuit. NetChoice is made up of some of the largest and most powerful tech companies in the world. Companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, Netflix, Snapchat, you get the picture. And NetChoice has been pushing back against state social media laws aimed at making the platforms safer for children.
Where else has this been happening?
NetChoice successfully blocked a law in California that would have required websites and apps to verify users' ages and limit features that could be addictive or harmful. And similar to this case in Colorado, a federal judge temporarily paused parts of California's law, saying it likely violated free speech protections by forcing companies to change how they present and moderate content.
A violation of free speech. Can you help us understand how Colorado's law could be a violation of free speech?
At the heart of this is whether it's commercial or compelled speech. The state argued it was just requiring companies to provide minors with factual, non-controversial information about the risks of social media use. But the judge disagreed and said this was compelled speech, and that essentially, by being forced to post these messages, companies could be saying something they don't agree with. The federal judge said Colorado's intent was laudable and legitimate, but said it likely went too far by compelling this private speech. The judge said the state should have come up with a less intrusive way to warn children about social media use. They said the state could have incentivized social media companies to voluntarily provide these disclosures, or the state could have done it directly.
So what happens next?
Well, this wasn't the final decision. This was a preliminary injunction, so an initial decision, not the full civil case. So it means Colorado's law is paused until there is a full hearing on the merits. But this latest decision does indicate a federal judge believes the tech industry has a very strong First Amendment case against Colorado's law.
Colorado lawmakers have tried to regulate tech platforms in some other ways, and it seems, Benta, like they've been having a pretty rocky time trying to do that.
Yes, I think that's true. Earlier this year, Governor Jared Polis actually vetoed 2 separate bills related to this. One measure would have imposed new safety rules on rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft. Another would have required social media platforms to do more to prevent illegal activity online. Even beyond this case, Colorado's Democratic lawmakers have been trying and struggling to really figure out how to regulate big tech. I think in this instance, with the social media pop-up warnings, lawmakers felt like they were in pretty safe ground. As one person said, this was one of the most benign things we thought we could do. So they're pretty disappointed in this latest decision.
CPR's Benta Birkeland, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Some churches have tried to pitch in to help address problems of homelessness in the western slope city of Montrose. This led to a lawsuit by the city, which didn't like a church's decision to allow camping on its property. Their year-long battle became a debate about how to help Coloradans who are unhoused, and the court case now has a resolution. CPR's Tom Hess has been covering the story. Tom, how did this all start? Why did this church in Montrose open up its property for camping in the first place?
Well, let's go back to last winter when the city of Montrose strengthened a local camping ban, and that, of course, happened just as temperatures began dipping below freezing. That worried leadership at the Montrose United Methodist Church. They'd always had a few people who would stay at their property overnight. Suddenly that number exploded, and they felt they needed to formalize the campground outside their church. Here's Reverend Kevin Young.
When a person asked Jesus, can you bottom line this for me? I mean, what? He gave a very simple answer. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.
And Tom, this happened shortly after a Supreme Court ruling on public camping bans.
Yeah, that's the Grants Pass ruling, and essentially what that said is that cities can ban people from camping even when local shelters are full. It was sort of a distinction from earlier case law. Now, Montrose had always had a camping ban in place, but after that ruling, the city went back and adjusted their own ordinance. A lot of cities did this, and the Montrose ordinance added more teeth. Then they changed some penalties for people who violated the camping ban.
Despite that, a number of people without housing showed up to the church quad last winter. Were other residents in Montrose upset about the camping at the church?
It was certainly the talk of the town. Nearby business owners were fairly upset, but some of the most vocal opposition was coming from Montrose city leadership. Here's city manager Bill Bell.
They are violating pretty much every type of ordinance we have on purpose. And unfortunately, we're having to take a hard stance on the Methodist Church right now, consistent with how we've treated other churches in Montrose over the last 50 years.
And during the trial that just wrapped, city attorneys zeroed in on 3 drug overdoses that happened kind of around the camp. They brought up a crime map that suggested an uptick in police calls near the church, but none of those overdoses or crimes were charged, and the judge didn't consider them. In the end, the trial was about some pretty standard city nuisance violations like trash on sidewalks.
Does the city have the authority to tell the church who can and can't camp on its own private property?
Yeah, so in this case, the judge decided it's a zoning issue, and the church is not exempt from that. The church had argued that They have a First Amendment right to carry out their church mission. In this case, this is helping the homeless. But the judge before the trial ruled that the church can't bring that in as a defense, and they can't use it to sidestep the city zoning code that says campgrounds aren't authorized in this neighborhood. The city's argument was basically, as long as these rules are applied the same way across different groups, say the bar down the street, say maybe a Mormon temple a block over, then the city can't make that First Amendment argument.
In the end, the judge found Montrose United Methodist Church guilty on 4 counts. Those include the zoning violations plus litter and nuisance citations. I'm wondering, Tom, do you think this ruling in Montrose could have broader impact? Could it affect other cities that might want to take legal action on unhoused camping situations?
Right now, it's a fairly narrow ruling, but this issue is popping up elsewhere. There was another case in Castle Rock last year where a church was trying to shelter people, and the city and the church actually reached an agreement on allowing homeless people to use RVs on their property. Now, the Montrose ruling could get appealed outside of municipal court, but as it stands now, it's a little bit more narrow.
CPR's Tom Hess. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
You know that what you eat affects your body's health, but could it also help you overcome trauma? Researchers here now think they might be able to help veterans with traumatic brain injury and PTSD by improving the health of their gut microbiome. This idea started with Dr. Lisa Brenner, who's a clinical research psychologist at the VA and CU School of Medicine.
Folks were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with both PTSD and brain injury symptoms, often related to being exposed to blasts. And one soldier I talked to started talking to me about how, in addition to his brain injury symptoms, his guts hurt for several weeks after he was exposed to a blast. And I couldn't help but think about the gut and the brain together after that conversation.
She's the lead researcher on a new study that uses a probiotic to treat veterans.
It turns out that lots and lots of veterans who have PTSD and others who have PTSD also have gut problems, including irritable bowel syndrome.
She and her co-investigators are trying to identify a probiotic that will control the immune system and calm things down.
The current probiotic that we're using is Lactobacillus rhamnosus. But I also really want to highlight that you can go to the store and you can buy a lot of different probiotics, but we are studying very, very specific strains of these specific bacteria that we think have this effect.
Brenner sees a real need for new treatments for PTSD. The most common one is psychotherapy, and she says that works, but people with the condition often don't want to go through talk therapy, so they don't show up. She hopes this approach that focuses on the gut can help. Brenner is getting help from Chris Lowry at CU Boulder, who studies how our physiological systems work together.
Certainly, preclinical studies in animals have shown that there's a very important connection between the gut microbiome, the gut lining, and the brain.
They're connected through chemical signals, through the immune system and inflammation, and through our nervous systems. So, what are some other things that might improve the microbiome of our guts in general?
Exercise, healthy diet, consumption of lots of fruits and vegetables. Those features are associated with the high diversity of the gut microbiome. And so certainly there's a good correlation between high diversity and healthy outcomes, both physical health and mental health.
You can check out the show notes for a clinical guide to probiotic products that Dr. Lowry recommends. Reporting for today's show also came from CPR's Andrea Dukakis. To keep up with what's happening in your state, be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can get a free honeysuckle white turkey when you spend $100 or more in a single transaction through November 27th. Clip the offer in the Safeway app and make your holiday feast delicious.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.